Welcome to the Retirement Planning Podcast with certified financial planners Richard W. Paul and Stephen Paul. Listen to a highlight from our recent radio show as we discuss the worlds of finance and retirement. All right, Rich, so you were going to talk about some of the exemptions or some of the things about the stretch IRA, because this is a big component that's going to change things for people, and the elimination of it, or at least the reduction of it. You were going to talk about some caveats. Go for that.
Yeah, upon the death of the account owner, the distributions to individual beneficiaries have to be made within 10 years. There are a few exceptions for spouses, disabled individuals not more than 10 years younger than the account owner, and also minor children who are beneficiaries of the IRA account. They have a special exception to the 10-year rule, but only until they reach age of majority.
Yeah, there's just so much to the Secure Act. I'm sure we'll be bringing it up time and time again throughout 2020. But just going back to, the tax planning, just do your tax bracket shopping. I mean, right now, they're at a discount. Make sure you're taking advantage of that, especially if your income's lower early on in retirement. If you're not maxing out the 12% bracket, look to start the conversions now. It'll pay off in the end.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, Steve, what you're saying is so on point. I thought there was an urgency with just taxes going up, but now that, the ability to take this not over a 50-year-old could take it over 34 years. Now it's 10, or a grandchild. We're talking about a 70 or 80-year stretch. Now it's going to be 10 once you reach age of majority. I am telling you, this is going to be, it's a big tax grab by our government.
Yeah, learn from this. Changes can be made, and changes can be made fast.
Well, it's their board game. They can change the rules in the middle of the game, and they do.
Yeah.
Well,
this seems to be the general consensus is that definitely this was the one piece of this that a lot of people are not happy about. So
yeah. So there, like I said, there's a number of different strategies. We're still dotting I's and crossing T's. We're getting with our estate planning attorney next week. We have a meeting scheduled, and so we're going to stay right on top of this.
Just remember, for you procrastinators out there too, that say, "Hey, I'm just going to wait until I have to take my RMD and then I'll just Roth convert it."
Right.
You can't do that. Yeah. I hear that at least once a week. You cannot Roth convert your RMD.
Okay. Good point. So, and they did make some changes to the RMD, like as we mentioned on that as well. So if you have some questions about the Secure Act, and I'm sure you probably will, and as Rich mentioned, you're welcome to go check it out and read some about it. There's a lot of stuff out there. Just Google that. You'll see. It'll probably wind up giving you a headache, but reach out to the team and have a conversation. Definitely talk with your advisor if you're working with one. If you're not, let Rich and Steve and the whole team know you want to see how this may affect your retirement plans. 248-305-9911. And speaking of taxes, guys, and forms and so on and so forth, there's also a new W-4 form. So for our listeners that are still working, pre-retirees maybe, what's the deal here?
Well, you know what? There is a new form. It'll help you determine how much you should withhold from your paycheck. And so it's a good idea to go through this exercise so you don't end up paying too little in, where you have to write a big check at the end of the year. Or even worse, I think, is you end up paying too much.
Yeah.
Some people like to get a refund, which is effectively, it ends up being nothing but an interest-free loan to Uncle Sam. And I just don't get that. So
now, you don't have to do this. My understanding is you don't have to fill it out, the new form, but like you said, it's probably a good idea if you want to make sure that you're getting, and apparently they actually made this form easier this time around too. So
yeah, it's supposed to be a little bit easier, and ultimately, again, you want to get that right, because you don't want to have to a big chunk of money at the end of the year. That's no fun at all. And conversely, people say, I'm going to get $4,000, $5,000, but it means you paid way too much in, and that money could have been working for you the way this market is going.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, why not be dollar cost averaging a little bit more into the market? And so just take the time to check that box to make sure that you've done the accounting on that and you understand it, and you're withholding the appropriate amount. You don't want to get stuck writing a check, and you don't want to get stuck really getting a check. I mean, a few $100s or $1,000, but if you're getting a huge refund, the exception of that might be, Steve, for those that just can't save money. And the only way they can save money is to do that. And if you're challenged in that regard, what I'll suggest to you, set up an electronic funds transfer, and because you're already doing it with your 401k. If you're trying to save some after-tax money, just set that up in your checking account, so that way you're first in line, you're the first to get paid.
Okay. All right. So definitely some good information there on a couple of the bureaucratic, there's the word I'm looking for, bureaucratic changes. And so what about retirement accounts, guys? So we were talking about that. It's always a good time to assess that at the beginning of the year if we're talking about our checklist here. Any changes there? Not only do, personally, but did the government make any changes? Have they increased those or anything?
Yeah, there were a couple small changes there. The IRAs didn't change at all.
Okay.
You look at the simples, there's a bump up on the simples. And the 401k changed. So it went from $19,000 to $19,500, and the catch-up on it also jumped up $500 to $6,500. So if you are in that period where you're 50 plus and maybe you've been helping out the kids, you haven't been saving as much, now it's time to save, you can throw 26 grand now into your 401k and start building that up.
And geez, you're looking right at me here. So, okay.
And from a standpoint of just, in general, and not just what the government made changes to, guys, but it's always a good idea at the beginning of the year to look at your contributions, right? And to figure out, are you assessing or putting in the right amounts and so on and so forth, just as general to your retirement plan.
Absolutely, no question. There's some changes there too as well in terms of what the companies are going to be able to offer. There's even talk about them including an annuity option. So there's a lot of stuff going on. What you want to do though is check with your company, see if they offer a Roth option, and because especially if you're in that last 5 or 10 years and you've got all this money in these tax deferred accounts, why not just in these lower tax rates just do or switch over to the Roth option or consider partially funding that. And we have a lot of clients that, I say a lot, but a good percentage that are putting all that money into that Roth option now because they have so much in the way of that tax deferred bucket, all taxable. Why not get the tax out of the way? And again, it's pay the tax now, pay the tax later kind of an argument. And so you really have to look at that. Now, if you're making a huge wage and you're in the top tax brackets, but still, where are taxes going in the future? What will your kids' tax brackets be? Are they successful? Remember, this money is going to get stacked on top of their 1040. And if taxes go up from where they're at 4 or 5 years from now, when they get it, and it could be in the next or second or third administration from now, taxes could easily go to 40, 50, 60, 70%.
Maybe you're not working the same amount of hours. Salary's down slightly. It might make sense just to contribute into the Roth 401k if that's the option. Maybe you built the pre-tax buckets up a little bit more than you want them to be, and it could create a problem if you continue to contribute to those.
No question. You certainly got to consider that. But again, if you're not sure, when you get to this point, we talk about the complexity of retirement planning and why is it so complex? Because retirements are lasting 30 or 40 years. And so when you, this planning that we're talking about has to last 3 or 4 decades, and you take just the Secure Act alone, I'll challenge you to go, you don't have to download it, you can just read it right on the computer. It's 114 pages. And you'll see very quickly that we're not stirring the pot. This stuff is complicated. It's taking us a while to decode exactly what's going on. It's still another meeting with our estate planning attorney and a couple more webinars before we've thoroughly dotted the I's and crossed the T's. That's how complex this is. And so make sure that you're talking to a good qualified advisor. This is the rest of your life money. This is sacrosanct money. It has to last you for how long? Well, the rest of your life. And that's the complexity. How long is that? We don't know. And it could be 4 decades. With average retirement anymore is 3 decades. It's a long time. And so it does require having a plan in place.
Well, this has been the Retirement Planning Podcast with certified financial planners Richard W. Paul and Steve Paul of R.W. Paul and Associates. Make sure that you reach out to them at 248-305-9911. That's 248-305-9911. This has been the Retirement Planning Podcast.
All matters discussed during the show are for informational purposes only and shall in no way be construed as a solicitation to sell securities or investment advisory services to residents of any state other than Michigan. Topics should be discussed with your individual advisor prior to implementation. Investment advisory services offered through Richard W. Paul and Associates, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Insurance services offered through Midwest Financial Consultants, Inc.